Good evening, everyone.
Hi,
I'm
everyone.
Clay, joined with the lovely and gracious E Train. We're glad to be with you once again. Even
Mhm.
those on the replay crew, we appreciate and love you guys too. For those of you that'll be joining us in and out through the night, also much quan and love to you. It's been a good week, kind of a pretty one around here. Hope you all have enjoyed similar. We just finished with another welding class this morning. So, working on TIG welding. Actually, we spent most of our time on MIG. They're different welding techniques and machines. MIG and TIG are two of them. TIG normally
Mhm.
you use on aluminum, MIG you'll use on steel and stainless. So, but we enjoy it. Had a good day. The dogs are happy. Ellen's happy. I reckon that makes me happy. So,
Uh-huh.
we are glad to be with Miss E. How are you doing?
I'm doing it. I'm a little tired after, getting up at 6 and 5 hours of welding, then coming home and being completely drained from all the heat and the chemicals and the grinding and cleaning your nose out of all the stuff that's been going in the air. It's a little exhausting.
Yeah, this class is almost like a real job.
Hmm.
You're actually, all geared up, either standing on your feet, which is a big part of the class, or, humped over, trying to weld or grind or cut something using the plasma torch. So, and it's on concrete. So basically standing on your feet on concrete for probably 3, 4, 5 hours, three
Five
to five
hours.
hours, depending on the
Hmm.
particular class. It will, if you're not used to it, it's different. So, our condolences, our admiration to those of you who have such jobs.
Hmm.
Footwear
It
is
ain't easy.
critical. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Footwear is critical, and we may not be as well equipped in that regard as we should be. Hey, Sky Ricky, how are you doing? Good to see you. Welcome.
And Brentwood's here too. Hey,
Good.
Sky.
Brentwood, always good to
Hey,
see you as
Brentwood.
well. Appreciate y'all joining in.
And I do have to say something because, I am a female in my late 40s. Let me tell you, when you have menopause and you have to stand in that flame retardant jacket and the helmet, and then I guess the skull cap and the gloves that are they're leather essentially, and everybody is welding around you and it's hot, and just the sweats. Just I mean, I'm dying. I really forgive me. We might get demonetized tonight, but for those lovely, I'll try not to get us demonetized. Um, Trans women, I really want to see them go through menopause. Hmm. Yeah. You are not a woman if you cannot give birth and you don't go through menopause. I'm sorry, but forget it.
So Ellen's starting us off early.
Sorry. I did edit my comment. I was going to say something much uglier, but I was
Yeah.
sweet.
Tonight's kind of I guess, somewhat of a controversial topic. Um, the economics of political ideologies. The reason I picked this is, we've been getting a bunch of questions on YouTube with all the different videos and everything. And for those of you that are new members, we are glad to have you. Appreciate you joining. But I see a lot of terms thrown around. And if you are on social media or if you watch the modern news media, you hear a lot of these terms thrown around. They're advocating fascism, communism, socialism, capitalism. Uh, Capitalism is
Capitalism is
collapsing.
evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, everybody thinks the other is, immoral, should be illegal, whatever. So, wanted tonight to just take some time and go through these different ideologies, political, but actually economic ideologies.
Can you explain the basis behind economics and
Yeah, most
social?
people most people aren't aware that economics is a social science. We use a lot of complex math. Finance is a subset of economics. We use a lot of complex math, a lot of very sophisticated analysis techniques. We even have our own unique field of statistics known as econometrics because our data is unique compared to a lot of other data. We do a lot of time series data that occurs over time, and it has some unique characteristics and unique problems in analyzing it and getting consistent, reasonably accurate results. And I say reasonably accurate because the initial proposition, the initial comment, economics is a social science. We're dealing with people and their responses to stimuli, economic, financial, monetary stimuli, dealing with their choices in how to exercise their economic opportunities, whether
Can
they're
I
limited, constrained, or free. But think about it. Most people are aware that economic predictions suck. Economic predictions have consistently been horrible, way off. Why?
feelings?
Yeah, basically, that's it. Humans, our models, when we try to look at past history and, growth in the economy and the different, things, hours worked, um, inflation, whatever, all of these different characteristics that we use to try to estimate future growth in the economy and those relationships. We're basically trying to evaluate human nature and response to stimuli. Well, humans, the underlying assumption of that analysis is that past is prologue, that how humans responded to those events in the past is how they will respond to it in the future. And that's where economic predictions get screwed because humans can adapt, humans can learn. Humans may not respond the same way they did before. For example, after the subprime crisis, obviously housing went to hell in a handbasket. Well, the Fed
Mhm.
forced rates down and mortgage rates got exceedingly low. But there was no housing boom. People didn't run out and buy houses with these historically low interest rates.
They
Why?
didn't trust it.
Well, they didn't have certainty. There was still so much economic certainty. They were worried about losing their jobs.
True.
So it's like I would tell my students, if I offered you $1 million as a student, if if I offered you $1 million loan, would you go out and buy a house with it? And at first their eyes light up, then they start thinking, well, no, I can't afford the mortgage payments. And, people working in an economy where there is, risk of recession or depression or whatever, they're worried that they may not have a job next month. So they are not, no matter how cheap the mortgages are, no matter how low the interest rate is, they are not going out and picking up a new mortgage because they're probably spending their savings or, excess cash that they can't use for additional down payment. The equity in their house, current housing prices dropped severely, so the equity in their house is down. Plus, taking on a new, bigger, larger mortgage, payments go up. They don't know that they're going to get a raise at the end of the year. They don't know that they're even going to have a job at the end of the year. So, the models would say if interest rates drop greatly, demand for mortgages would increase. But that's not what happened because people adapt. People learn. Their behaviors change based on other circumstances, which may be unforeseen to the economist or undescribable in the model. Basically, we can't quantify as a number hopes, fears, dreams, whimsy, whatever.
Oh, come on.
Just can't do it. So that's why economic forecasts suck and why economics is ultimately a social science. We are trying to evaluate and judge human nature and responses to various stimuli. We do it based on past responses, which you would think would be a pretty good, pretty accurate indication or give us some
Yeah.
reliable estimating ability.
When circumstances change and events happen, people change the way they think, they change the way they feel, they change the risk they want to take.
And they learn from prior experiences, so they change
Mhm.
their response. That's hard to model. That's hard to estimate and include in a mathematical model. We can't quantify that kind of thing.
If you don't mind me pointing to the current political dynamic in this country, you have half the people on one side, half on the other, well, maybe 40-40, and then some in between. And they can't agree on the most basic issues. So
Yeah.
it's just like, the economic, you don't know what people are going to come up with.
You don't. And sometimes you would expect with certain things going on that some people would that people would change because maybe you change, but others don't change. And you're like, why? What do they not see? What do they see? What do they not see? If you as an individual can't consistently figure out other people's responses, there's no way in hell an economist ever will be able to in his models.
Mhm.
So basically, if you want to understand complex economic theory, just personalize it. Instead of trying to figure out what the whole economy and nation would do, just figure out what you would do in a simplified version of whatever theory you're trying to work out. And that's probably what most people will do, what most rational people will do. That will help you better anticipate
If you're rational.
down the road. Do what?
If you're rational.
If you're rational. We have in finance, we have what we call an efficient market hypothesis. We hold that the market's efficient, which simply means that it will adjust prices based on new information. It will absorb the new information and adjust prices accordingly. Thank you, Brentwood. You're sweet. Well, there are three forces that drive an efficient market. The first force that ensures an efficient market is that people are rational, that they do see this new information and will adjust the price accordingly. Rationality. The second one is my favorite. It's that people are irrational, which what does an irrational investor do when he sees new information? Well, he will either consistently undervalue the stock or he will consistently overvalue the stock. Well, if you can assume that they're equal in number, overvalue, undervalue, where do they meet?
In the middle.
In the middle at a rational price. So even though they're irrational, they still end up at a rational price, which is the cool thing about finance. You got problems, we got answers. That's why we make the big bucks. And then the third one, is arbitrage. Arbitrage is basically, and this is the only definition of arbitrage you will ever need. Arbitrage is exploiting a price differential in two separate markets simultaneously without risking your own capital. So you've got a stock that's being sold in the New York exchange and in the Berlin exchange, but accounting for currency rates, there's a difference. One's high, one's low. So you can sell the high, buy the low simultaneously in both markets and capture that difference. And you
Sounds like a
do it
lot of
without
work.
having to put up any money. Do what?
Sounds like a lot of work.
But it's free money. And really, you've just got two different terminals and you're just doing this on each terminal. So actually, you don't do it. Your computer algorithm
does it for you.
Does it for you. And it does it faster than you could ever see it. So you as an individual will probably never have the chance to exploit arbitrage. But those three forces, rationality, irrationality, arbitrage, are each in and of themselves a sufficient and necessary condition to enforce an efficient market. So even if only one of them exists, it still will drive an efficient market. It doesn't mean that the market is always perfectly efficient, but that it's generally efficient. You still can have some abnormal prices because information's incomplete. The ability to digest that information is inconsistent, those kind of things. Two people can see the same information, come to different conclusions. It may take a while for the true picture to be seen.
So, Clay, why do we have all of this? I'm going to call it discombobulation of ideas regarding the three main economic systems.
Because people have different experiences, they have different values, and ultimately they have different views of man. It is, after all, a social decision. It is a social ideology. The economic ideology or values that a person holds and promotes are a reflection, I believe, are a reflection of their view of man. Do they have a high view of man or a low view of man?
So if you're talking about, like, I was watching a video on YouTube the other day, and there was this woman from Venezuela, and she was actually having a conversation with some other people, Dave Rubin, for example. And she was like so against socialism and communism. She was like, you have not lived it. You do not understand it. You don't realize what you're asking for. To these other progressive females
of ourselves. Okay. We haven't even identified the three we're going to talk about.
Well, let's get there.
Okay. Over the past year, probably everybody has heard somebody call somebody else a fascist, a socialist, a communist. You've heard people advocate corporate capitalism. You've heard people advocate compassionate capitalism or even communism. And there are probably other variations out there. So what do people mean? What do these ideas mean for the individual? Personally as well as financially. That's kind of what we want to, take a look at. So over the next hour or so, hope to give you a better understanding of economic theory and financial reality. So let's start off with the basics. Looking at it from a personal or individual perspective, there are three main categories of economic ideology, three basic tenets. First is where the individual is free to choose what they do with their labor, and we may call it production or supply. and what they choose to do or exchange their labors for. And we'll refer to that as buy or demand. So you've got supply, you've got demand. Supply is production, demand is what is consumed. In case I, use those terms. Where the individual is told what to produce, but generally can buy what they choose to buy. And the third one being where the individual has no real choice in what he produces or what he can buy.
Okay,
So,
back up.
the three main styles: individual
Yeah.
is free to choose and produce. Second one, individual is told what to produce, but not what to buy. Third, individual is told what to produce and what they can buy. In the first, the individual can own property, any type of property for any length of time. And by own, I mean they can control it and dispose of it as they see fit. In the second, the individual can own personal property, maybe a home, maybe a car, but generally they may be more limited or restricted in owning capital, the means of production, something that produces products. Generally, the state will own those, control those, or regulate those intensely. So the individual may, quote unquote, own it, but they have very little control. They don't have the freedom to produce what they want, when they want, how they want. And then in the third, the individual owns nothing. And you probably heard that before. These three ideologies have a name. We'll refer to them as capitalism, socialism, and communism. Now, obviously, there are some gray areas in between, but we're going to start off in kind of a simplified world and understand the basics. And then from there, we can better add complexity. Now, even the gray areas themselves are usually transitions between one form and another. And in most cases, historically, those transitions do not favor the individual's power, rights, whatever. Also, keep in mind, most people will judge an ideology by its stated goal or flowery prose, not by its consequences. Now, for those of you that have watched the channel often, I often say that ideas have consequences. This is why. One great mistake that people often make is to judge policies and programs by their intentions and not their results. My point is, it's the actual consequences that people have to live with. And that's what they should be judged by, not what the intent, not what the stated goal is, because oftentimes I firmly believe the stated goal is just propaganda. Even the proponent knows it will never achieve that objective, but it makes it easier to sell.
Wait, I'm gonna share screen real
Okay.
quick, just so we have something. Nope, that's not it. Continue on. I'll find it.
So much for the screen share. Well,
Can I just do what I have on the? There it is. How about that? Is that helpful at all?
let's see. Hadn't seen this before. Uh, it's okay. It's not
Some of the
horrible. I've
things that you're
seen worse.
talking about.
Do what?
Some of the things you were talking about, just to give some kind of graphic.
Yeah, some of the things are a little bit like, for example, like the class distinction. I would argue that
Well,
communism, for example, has very strict class distinctions. There's a ruling class, there is the everybody else class.
but that's not the intention of it, even though that is.
Well, again, we're not talking about intentions, we're talking about actual differences.
I know. Well, this is
We're
just
talking about the
limited
reality
partnership.
yeah, the reality that people have to live with. You know, Putin, for example, Xi, for example, lives a very different reality than the everyday proletariat.
Yeah, but the everyday proletariat, they're all kind of the same. There's nothing
They're
lower,
all poor
middle.
and
Yeah.
miserable.
Yeah.
They are all told what to do, how to do it, and when they can do it. Now, let's start off with the historical condition of man. Historically, throughout time, the average man, the average person by far lived in poverty and sometimes extreme want. It's almost some form of enslavement, ruled over by those that were more physically powerful, either locally or um, geographically. All served and even existed at the leisure, the whimsy of those who had more power. Most individuals had to, be largely self-sustainable due to the lack of opportunity for barter or trade. And this kept most people in perpetual poverty and want. So, to understand the normal human state, the normal human condition, it's poverty. Throughout history, the taxes and the law could be very punitive, keeping people poor, resulting in little, if any, economic opportunity to acquire wealth. Whoops, sorry.
What was that?
That was the dog food bell,
Oh, sorry.
and yours is going off in the background here. I can hear it downstairs.
No, my phone's in the car, in the truck, I think.
Okay, something's going off.
I don't know.
Um, So historically, man's condition was basically that of a vassal or a slave. He had little opportunity to acquire or maintain individual wealth except by pleasing the king, the ruler, and ruling over others. Getting some position where they could rule over others and then collect a portion of the taxes. Holding a government position basically was the path to wealth. Now, the development of the political ideologies that we're talking about tonight basically began in 1776, which was a very good year for those, history majors. That was the year when Adam Smith published his well-known treatise on the wealth of nations.
Ah,
This is one of the original copies that I wish I owned. An inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations, 2 volumes. And that's where Smith basically laid out his case that agriculture was not the key to prosperity, that trade was, that free trade was. And this is the missive that gave rise to what we now know as capitalism. Now, if you're interested, this is a statue of Adam Smith erected on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh. It's not my picture. I have pictures of Smith and actually his grave in Edinburgh. But I thought the statue was probably more, what's the word I'm looking for? More
I don't know.
reflective, more thoughtful than just a picture of him. First of all, if you notice, his expression is kind of somber. economics consistently has been referred to as um, the miserable science.
Oh,
Because it oftentimes, has predicted doom or limitations or whatever. Behind him, I don't know if you can really see it too well, but behind him is a plow, which reminds us of his economic doctrine, from which reminds us of the economic doctrine, agriculture, which Smith sought to supplant. Agriculture is behind him. Agrarianism is behind him. The to his front right is actually a beehive. Doesn't look like a modern beehive, but it's an old time beehive. You can see the little cells, whatever, being built in it. I'm not sure what exactly you would call it.
the little honeycombs.
Yeah. And then, Smith is resting his hand on this beehive, which to him was a symbol of industry. His hand is on a, globe of the world. But if you'll notice, his hand is covered, and this is not the best picture. His hand is actually covered by his academic gown, his theory of the invisible hand. We'll talk about the invisible hand in a minute.
I'm gonna have to get you to catch me up to date a little bit here. I am creating a table so that I can keep up with everybody can keep up with all the things that you're saying.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Sure.
I'm trying to do a little formatting here. I do apologize.
That's okay. Well, just let me know when you have questions.
Oh well, hang on.
And I I agree, Brentwood. The beehive is interesting. I actually thought that originally was the Roman. I can't think of the term for it, but if you see Roman statues or symbols, you'll see a banded sheaf, which symbolize their power. But I had to look this up, and it was actually described by everybody as a beehive. So I thought that was interesting. It in the background, and the sighting and positioning of the statue is intentional. In the background is St. Giles Cathedral, beautiful, beautiful cathedral, which kind of complements Adam's high view of man. Now I mentioned high view and low view of man. What are the differences? What I mean when I say that? A high view of man basically is the view that each and every person, regardless of their employment, status, class, whatever, is of infinite value. And to quote our founding fathers, is endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, which among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So if you hold that view, I would describe that as a high view of man. A low view of man would equate man with every other organism, every other form of life. He's no better, no worse. You might perceive yourself as better than another due to your better education, your wealth, your status, whatever. I would describe that as a low view of man. And each one of those views has different consequences or different forms, different ideologies in terms of how they relate to other people, how that individual with a high view or low view relates to other people. So Smith had a very high view of man. And so with St. Giles Cathedral in the background, it kind of commemorates or evokes the notion of eternal ideas. Now, the statue faces the Edinburgh city chambers, which is the site of the office where Smith used to work. So it is, facing the office of change, facing change, so to speak. And those are some of the artists, the statue's creators, some of his thoughts in building, designing, and placing the statue. Now, also, the statue has references to Smith's support for trade, particularly with America. His neckwear, for example, is modeled after that which was worn by Thomas Jefferson. His wig is in the likeness of George Washington. So there are several little hints to kind of an Americanization of the idea of Smith's ideas, because America was the first country really to implement a completely free economic system, capitalism. So let's consider some of these different ideas. And to begin with, we'll start off with capitalism. And I've kind of got to give a hat tip to Thomas Sowell, because I hesitate using an ism when I'm talking about capitalism. Capitalism is really not an ism. It's closer to being the opposite of an ism, because it is simply the freedom of ordinary people to make whatever economic transactions they can mutually agree to. And that is the whole key to capitalism. It's individuals entering into voluntary trade, a voluntary exchange.
Is this helpful at all?
Yeah, sure.
Have I missed anything while I was making it?
Yeah, I will try to emphasize the points a little clearer maybe as I go through, so that'll help you out some.
Okay. Thank you.
Um, so capitalism, completely voluntary exchange by both parties engaged in the transaction, neither one under compulsion or restriction or being forced. It is the ideology of free choices, you know, without compulsion or limitation by government to enter into any transaction desired. Now, for good or for bad, and some people really hate this aspect, but for good or for bad, capitalism embodies the freedom to fail. And failure is a big part of the free market success. People fail to live up to their potential or to carry out all their good intentions in all kinds of economic and political systems. Capitalism makes them pay a price for their failures. I oftentimes say I have 50 rules for life. My second rule is stupid should hurt. And when you insulate people from the consequences of their actions, they don't learn. And so you actually get more stupid in society, more stupid beliefs, ideas, efforts in society, because people don't learn because they are protected from the consequences of their ideas. Well, capitalism, pure capitalism, makes people pay for their failures. Socialism, feudalism, fascism, communism, all of those enable personal failures, especially those in power. It enables those in power, the failures of those in power, to be ignored. This freedom to fail is essential, though painful. A lot of people argue for equity of outcomes. Well, that removes risk. That puts equality before freedom. And those who put equality before freedom will have neither, ultimately have neither. A society,
Sorry.
to quote Milton Friedman, a society that puts freedom before equality will get a high degree of both.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little issue here. I'm getting
No,
there.
that's fine. If you have, if I say something too fast or, go too fast, just let me know.
No, I was
I've
just trying
never
to
been
copy and it
accused of
ended up
talking
copying in the
fast.
same thing.
Yeah.
I got to
I've
make it a little bit smaller.
never been accused of talking too fast. I would just go
No,
ahead and enter them in, then we can adjust the sizes and font a little later.
that's just my one to follow along.
Okay.
There you go. How cool is that?
So kind of to sum it up, capitalism is simply free exchange with no restrictions or compulsions on either party by government. That's why it's oftentimes referred to as free trade. Now, how about socialism, communism? You know, most people will describe the three such as capitalism, socialism, communism, with socialism being in the middle between capitalism and communism. But it's actually not. As Lenin said, socialism is the precursor to communism. Now, Karl Marx, um, who, along with Frederick Engels, wrote the Communist Manifesto, actually used both terms, socialism and communism, interchangeably. As such, socialism, communism, either and or, is the polar opposite of capitalism. The essence of capitalism is voluntary exchange. The essential notion of a socialist society, is trade by force. One side is compelled by or limited in what it can offer. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. You've got Marx and Engels writing the Communist Manifesto in 1848. Yeah, 1848, 49. And the idea was it was a plan for what they called the proletariat, the working class, overthrowing the bourgeoisie, the ruling class. Now, Marx in the manifesto held socialism comes first. Socialism was a transitional system in which the working class controlled the government and economy, yet still pays people according to how long, hard, or well they work. Capitalism and private property still exist, though to a limited degree. The second phase is where no private property existed, but everything was owned by the state. So Marx saw socialism as the beginning of communism. And as such, he would use the two interchangeably. So both are polar opposites of capitalism. Socialism or communism, in either one, you're told modestly different degrees what you can do and can't do, what you can produce, what you can't produce, what you can buy, what you can't buy. In communism, you receive what the state gives you. So there is an equity of outcomes, which a capitalist would call shared misery.
Where are
Unless
we on this?
class,
On
ma'am,
which I had to redo some things. Where are we now?
talking about communism and socialism being a shared misery or equality of outcomes.
Okay, let me put that down here. Sorry.
In in communism and even in socialism, there is a ruling class. Marx would talk about rule by the proletariat, which always makes me laugh because obviously the guy was never in a meeting, particularly an academic meeting. I mean, we'll meet for hours and we don't get squat done or any kind of consensus or whatever. When have you ever seen what's the old adage? A camel is a horse built by a committee. So if you truly had the proletariat owning everything, controlling everything, if you truly had the people, having to meet and agree develop consensus for policies going forward, you would never get anything done.
Mhm.
People talk about, I've seen some people talk about, well, true communism has never been tried. Yes, it has. Because the quote unquote ideal is impossible. You can never have millions of people agreeing on, getting together to vote on every different little policy. You have to have leaders. And in a communistic society, can I say those leaders are not chosen? Somebody's going to come out and tell me, no, you're wrong. Putin was just elected. He got what, 96% of the vote? How about Xi in China? He won with 100% of the vote. What happens to those people who don't support him? I just wonder. So that's a perfect example of communism, socialism. It's by force. Okay.
I missed something. Wait, what happened there? The trying to copy. There we go. Apparently I missed something. The trade by force is communism, or but socialism, of course, it's free trade. US, but what is the communist? Is it still the same?
Trade by force, yes.
Okay.
With no ability to choose, no alteration. It's like how many of y'all in America will remember the Yugo?
I do.
A car exported to the US from communist Yugoslavia. Well, it was the only car made. It was the only car available for sale in Yugoslavia. So if you wanted a car, you had to buy a Yugo. And the waiting list for a Yugo was 6, 7, 8 years. So if you thought you could, get one, you put your name on the waiting list. And then maybe 6 years later, you'd get one. So you don't really have choices. And the choices you have pretty much suck. Now, the key point to me about these three economic political ideologies really is that these views emanate from views of man's nature and his value. Socialism, communism are usually atheistic, with generally a low view of man and his value. And if you think of the names of the greatest proponents of these ideologies, you've got Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao, even Mussolini, Hitler, and yes, they are socialist. And some people disagree with that. Some people, no, Brentwood, the Yugo that didn't go. It, for those of you that don't remember the Yugo, think of a smaller Pinto. What's the little Fiat car now, the little two-door Fiat that's being sold? The 500?
You got me.
That's kind of like what the Yugo was, but it's bigger and obviously far better. The Yugo was $3,000 when most American cars were 15 to 18. So it was cheap. And a lot of people bought one as a second car or for their kids' first car or whatever. Only problem was it had a life expectancy of about 6 months. And literally after the first year and a half, sales just died. Nobody bought them. The dealers went out of business.
The Yugo that didn't go, as Brentwood says.
The last demand, the last person I saw really wanting to buy Yugos would buy them, cut off the roof, and use it as a tree planter. And so he had
that's cute.
He had a field of Yugos growing trees, and then the forklift could just pick up the Yugo set it on a truck, and deliver it to wherever. So apparently he could buy them cheaper than he could, frame them in boxes, because the boxes would use wood and would deteriorate. The Yugo would at least last for a couple of years. Being some metal, it wouldn't rot. Now, back to, Nazism and fascism. And I want to make it perfectly clear, when I'm talking about Nazism, I'm talking about only the economic model. I'm not talking about all the associated anti-Semitism, the murder, the war, the mass slaughter. I'm simply talking about it as an economic ideology.
And social ideology.
Social ideology, yeah. So Nazis and fascists, both are derogatory terms, used to refer to someone today. Both of them are derogatory terms generally used to refer to someone who doesn't agree with you, or someone's calling somebody a fascist because they don't agree with them.
Now, can I correct you on that one?
Yeah.
Usually it's someone who is a Trump supporter, who is white, who is conservative. Am I missing anything?
I haven't seen anything that I would grotesquely argue with.
Okay, there you go. The three main things, which you're called a fascist or a communist, and the whole world's going to collapse because we like capitalism.
Yeah, now looking at the economic ideologies of both actually would allow private ownership of property. So some people see that and go, hey, that's capitalism. That's not socialism. Mussolini, the father of fascism, Hitler, the father of Nazism, both of them did work closely with corporations owned by individuals. Mussolini even defined fascism as the perfect marriage of corporation and state. His idea was to align government closely with that, with the interest of. Let me restate this. I'll get it right in a minute. His idea of fascism was to align the goals of a few corporations closely with that of the state. Well, Hitler, Mussolini, ownership, working with private companies. I think most everyone would agree. I think most every rational person would agree that ownership under either one of these two was an illusion. Should any owner not do what he was told, his ownership, hell, even his life, would be a very short-term proposition. I mean, just imagine somebody going up to Hitler and say, no, I'm not going to make armaments for your war. I want to make peeps for Easter.
Peeps.
What do you think the life expectancy of that individual would be? So is that corporation actually under compulsion? Or are they entering into it voluntarily? Is this a voluntary exchange? So both of them, Nazism, fascism, lack the essential essence for capitalism, voluntary exchange. They both work under the compulsion of government, who is controlling the means of production. Hence, both are socialist in nature. Both have a very low view of man. Both will limit man's rights and freedom. If you want to improve man's rights, if you want to expand his freedom, then you're free market. You can't be a communist and say, I believe in individual rights. No, because the government has all the power, all the control. The individual has no right. In fact, the individual's life is subservient. His purpose for living is subservient to that of the needs of the state, the greater needs of the state. And you see that throughout history. True socialists, true communists have ruled with an iron fist. treating individual life as trivial compared to the needs of the state. Just look at the results of these ideologies, which is a huge contrast to capitalism, which makes the individual the main power and value. The capitalist owns their property without the leave or permission of any other. They don't need anybody else's permission to own their property or to use it. They can acquire additional wealth not by stealing it from others, but by creating it or earning others' business. So, out of all the different economic ideologies, capitalism is unique in that it doesn't see a fixed pie whose slices need to be divided up. It not only allows, but it encourages, it needs creation. This creative freedom that's possible under capitalism not only allows, but incentivizes individuals to fill unmet needs or wants. Think of Steve Jobs, who, again, this may be kind of a unique American question, but I think it's kind of gone global. Who knew they wanted an iPod or an iPad or a Mac computer or an iPhone before Jobs created them?
Or before you realize what they could do for you, make your life a little simpler.
Exactly. And how many jobs did Jobs create with that innovation? How many rich people did he create? How many upper middle class? How many middle class people did he create doing that?
Tons.
Millions of jobs created by those innovations. You never see that innovation or adaptation in a centrally planned economy or society.
All right, I'm going to ask you to look at this chart just real quick, make sure I've got the things on there that are correct.
Yeah, for socialism under government intervention, I would probably say government intervention in day-to-day life, because you can still have some areas without
Okay,
so much government intervention. It's kind of the beginning, so to speak. Communism, it
got
would
you.
be complete.
So we're good there.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
cool.
in
Thank you.
terms of capitalism, freedom's
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed in the US by the Constitution. Free trade is not just a US phenomenon, so I would probably say, individual rights
Well, if you go
assumed.
to the next one, very little freedom, speech, press,
Right.
defending one's own self. That's the same. And then communism, you have none.
Yeah, I would just say, freedoms assumed. Very little freedoms, no freedoms. That kind of thing.
Okay.
I know I'm picky. We'll get Sky Ricky's and Brentwood's vote on some of that. They're good with that stuff too.
If I have to redo this, I'm going to be so mad at you, Clay. If
The
they agree with
crowd
me.
cheers.
All right. What's the anything?
All right.
All right. We're good. Y'all are killing me.
Talking about Jobs and innovation.
Jobs.
Yeah, Steve Jobs, Apple.
Oh, Jobs.
Jobs. Yeah, sorry.
Like, how did Job get into this conversation? I don't even know.
My mind's a little bit haywire. But you'll never see that kind of innovation, that kind of adaptation in a centrally planned economy. A month or so ago, we talked about China and its economic collapse, how, it's by design, because there were many in China who, under the more liberal policies and ability to own private property had grown wealthy. And wealthy people are harder to control. So China has really clamped down on a lot of that freedom ability, the ability to conduct international trade. The economy has been crashing, and it's not an accident. It's actually by design. So you've got, the communist leaders like Xi who actually discourage innovation, who actually discourage wealth accumulation because it interferes with their control, with the control by the proletariat.
You got to show it again, don't you?
She gets mad at me, just not anybody else, right?
No, I'm not mad. No, I'm listening. I'm trying to do the things. So
I'm just playing off Brentwood's comment there.
I know you are.
Wealthy people generally have options. Wealthy people are generally harder to control. In a capitalist society, that's not a problem because the government shouldn't control anybody.
Shit. Excuse
But
me.
in socialist or communistic governments, wealth is a problem. Acquiring wealth is a problem. Being wealthy is a problem. So talk about socialism and communism as being implemented by force. And that's a lesson from history. That's whatever. They have a low view of man. A low view of man is required by socialism and communism. Those two political ideologies have resulted in the deaths of hundreds of millions of people, more than any other ideology in history. That's a pretty low view of man. They devolve into enriching the power of a few elites. The masses are just simply irrelevant. Hence, the shared misery that both have yielded every time they've been tried. And they've been tried hundreds of times since their invention. It is a stark contrast to capitalism. And
right. What did I miss? I had to do some things.
I don't know.
Is there another row here?
I don't know. I'm really kind of thinking about what I'm saying. I'm not keeping up necessarily with what all you've got.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on. How about
Yes. Hello?
Capitalism values individual life. Socialism, not as much. Communism, not at all.
Y'all, I have issues. NDIVI.
All right, back to the thought here.
Sorry. There we go.
If I can remember the thought. Shared misery. It's a stark contrast to capitalism. And, as I was saying, that's really not my opinion or thought. That's just the simple history. We have seen the labs. We have created at least three perfect labs. After World War II, for example, you had the perfect labs of East and West Germany, North and South Korea, China and Taiwan. East and West Germany, they had the same academic background, structure, ability. They had the same raw materials. They had the same infrastructure. They had the same level of healthcare. Same with North and South Korea. I would say the same with China and Taiwan, but Taiwan had no natural resources. It's just one big ass rock. And there was no infrastructure there. None. So Taiwan had it even worse than China. Well, 40 years later, East and West Germany, North and South Korea, China and Taiwan. Which one had higher standard of living? Which one had better infrastructure? Which one had better education? Which one had better health care? Which one had more freedom? Most every metric you would pick, the free markets far outperformed centrally planned economies, socialist, communist, whatever you want to describe it as. So it's not even an academic debate. We've seen the labs, we've seen the results. China was basically a third world nation till in the 90s. Who was it? Chow? And I forget the exact premier, but he liberalized the economy. He allowed private ownership, private investment. And China's economy started taking off. So historically speaking, you understand the outcomes for individuals under socialism and communism both end up impoverishing the people. Just look at the latest example of Chavez in Venezuela. He took over, poor farm worker. He took over as president of Venezuela. He took over the most prosperous country in South America with the highest standard of living. Within 20 years, he had shut down the press and impoverished and starved the people to such an extent that they were eating their pets and raiding the zoos for animals to eat for food. Inflation hit 13,000% per year. And you're going, Moffat's a little crazy.
Well, we know that already. It's okay. All right, the last on healthcare, how's that looking?
Private healthcare, if you can afford it, you get what you get. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, okay.
Here is an article showing Venezuela's hungry hunt wildlife zoo animals as economic crisis grows. This is in 2018, and the economic crisis started, 2014, 2015, when it really started hitting. First thing they did was they ran out of toilet paper. Okay. Then they started running out of food.
Wait, that looks familiar. 2020.
And then zoo animals started starving and dying. And then people started breaking into the zoos to eat the animals.
See, I would have thought they just would have thrown the people into the zoos to feed the animals.
Yeah, but there are tons of articles out there that you can read on it if you want, if you doubt, or if you don't remember. It wasn't a huge issue in the news. I don't know why. It was a massive, massive humanitarian crisis, just like some of the things we've seen in Africa. But it would have made socialism look bad. But there is good news that came out of Venezuela with all this. Chavez died. Again, he took office as a poor worker. And he left his daughter an estate worth about $20 billion, making her the richest woman in South America. So there's your bit of good news for socialism. Now, I thought this.
Hang on. I had a same conversation with someone off stream that said that they had a chipmunk in their neighbor's house. Now, I would offer to loan them Mahoney. What do you think the chances that chipmunk will survive for more than 30 minutes is?
Mahoney first has to be aware that there is a chipmunk. That chipmunk's probably hiding somewhere and she won't know it for days.
Oh, that chipmunk's going to try to run around. It's trying to get back home.
I remember my mom called school once when I was in, I don't know, 5th, 6th grade. A chipmunk had run in the house, so she wanted me out of school to go home and catch the chipmunk.
And his teacher let him go.
Yeah, they let me go. I went home, got a towel, cornered the chipmunk, threw the towel over the chipmunk, picked him up, let him back outside. He lived happily ever after.
As far as you know.
Oh, we saw him all the time.
Oh, did you? How do you know it's the same chipmunk?
Because we would talk.
Oh, you talked. Okay, now you're Snow White.
I am a chipmunk whisperer.
Okay, well, I think as soon as Mahoney was aware, which she's pretty good at sniffing things and knowing the movements, I don't think the chipmunk would last half an hour.
Mahoney's a good hunter. She loves to hunt.
She hunts too much lizards and birds and moles and mice and rats. She loves them.
Yeah, I happen to like Carolinsius anoles. I remember when I was in college or whatever, I went to a luau. I didn't have a grass skirt, but I had a towel with like bamboo on it, so I wore the towel. And then I caught a couple of Carolinsius anoles, the little green turned to brown lizards, and flipped them on my earlobes, and they would bite my earlobes, and they would hang there all night. They would hang there for hours. And then I went to the luau with the lizard earrings.
I call them the Carolinsius a-holes.
They're cute, but Mahoney cute. Mahoney loves them, and I can't break her of the habit.
Here we go. All right, I got the picture. If I can, why can't I just make it big? Okay, images. I'm working on this, y'all. There we go. Where are we? Listen, I got so many things being shared right now. My head's swimming. Let's do present. I'm sorry, y'all. Oh, I need to. Okay, stop screen. Now I can present. Share screen. That's your little anal.
That's him.
Yep, but they will just pop right onto anything and they just stay there.
Yeah, they just latch down. And they really do make good earrings. So if any of y'all want to go to a luau or whatever and you have a chance.
Yeah, it's funny because COVID was so awful. We have like a greenway behind the house on the island, and we would walk down to this one little creek behind the pond where the alligator is. And we would literally sit there for what, hour or two, just trying to find the little a-holes, I call them. We'd point, oh, did you see one? Did you see one? Oh, there's one right there. Do you see it? I mean, but you know, I guess COVID made everybody crazy. But we were that was like our hobby, was to go find a-holes.
Yeah, and I'm nowhere in Steve Irwin's league. I got to give the dude props. He was a good dude and enjoyed him.
Yes, he is the Steve Irwin. Yeah, he can be. Listen, if there is an issue with, I don't even like to handle spiders, nothing like that. I'm like, Clay. There's a bug. There's a roach. There's a spider. There's a snake. There is a rat. There's a mouse. There's something dead on the porch that Mahoney killed. I don't do dead animals at all. So, yeah. Anyway.
You know, I was sitting here thinking, for those of you that have followed the show for a while, we talked previously about the Great Reset.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier, when I mentioned the comment that you'll own nothing, how many
Communism.
of you in your head finish that off with, and you'll like it?
And you'll be happy.
and you'll be happy. Because that's what I did when I was, saying it. You'll own nothing, and I almost wanted to go ahead and say, and you'll like it. And we've talked a lot, we've heard a lot on the Great Reset. And I hope everybody understands now that it is nothing but a rehashed socialism.
And you'll eat bugs. Is it more socialism or communism?
Probably actually communism, because you will own nothing.
But there is a socialist communism I've heard about. What is that?
It's just a transition phase. You remember I talked about socialism being the precursor to communism?
So it's just that in between.
Yeah, it's just increasingly where the government tells you what controls the demand side, controls what you can buy.
Well, let me ask you another question.
What you can buy, what you can have.
Can a country be a capitalist country or a secure country without any borders? He's treading lightly on this one.
No, it just catches me a little off guard. I'm got a topic and idea in my head, and I'm, kind of thinking about it, and then you kind of throw in a little bit different one. You can't have a welfare system and open borders. Carson.
I've been derailing, Carson. Like, seriously, I have been doing your job.
Yeah, I was going to say, Carson, you've been missed, but Ellen has been stepping up admirably.
I was just thinking about you going, why am I having to derail? Where is Carson? And I was like, here we go. No, actually, let me back you up real quick, Clay. Or maybe I'll ask chat. How many of you are aware? Oh, I'm sorry you're sick, Carson. How many of you are aware that the United States has NGOs in other countries who go on the CPB1 app, right? They go ahead and make their appointment. They can put a picture of whoever for biometrics, and they're let into the country, flown into the inner United States from Ecuador, Venezuela, Honduras, Central and South America. Anybody do that? That they're not having to actually check in with the border, except through an app? Over 300,000 of them. Anyone? Clay?
I'm talking about capitalism, communism, and socialism.
I know, but I think that allowing all of these people into our country is not, it's not helping. No, well, but not as surprised as I should be. Yeah.
But let's bring the topics down in a little bit of order.
See, Carson, I'm trying.
That would help me.
Carson, I'm going to try actually to gift you a freaking membership again. Dag nabbit. Okay, go ahead.
Since we're talking about immigration, as I said, you can't have immigration and welfare, because you basically are guaranteeing people that the working class in this country will pay for them to come and not work. And that is a huge incentive. And it's a huge penalty for those who work. So ultimately, that will destroy the republic. It's just math. It simply can't be afforded. not to mention the toll it takes on schools. You talk to some of the teachers in the border states where illegal immigration is high, and their kids will come, and age-wise, they're, I don't know, in the 3rd grade, but they've had almost zero reading and writing, particularly in English. And so the teacher has to literally back up the class to try to teach the new students, and so it hurts the education of the current students. Violence. You have more and more homeless. You have homeless encampments spreading everywhere. The paper hasn't covered it, but there's getting to be a relatively large homeless encampment in New York City. San Francisco, LA are replete with them. The big cities. Who pays for all this? Who's paying for these people to get free housing, free food? New York's putting them up in hotels, giving them $10,000 visas, giving them room service. Who's paying for that? And obviously, that's a big incentive for even more people to come.
The American taxpayers are paying for it,
And
as well as they're paying for the plane tickets for the people coming from their home countries to get here.
Yeah, and as Ellen referred to, we have NGOs, she didn't define it though,
Sorry.
non-government organizations.
That's your job.
These will be organizations set up for humanitarian purpose, let's say. Well, these humanitarian purpose organizations are being funded by the U.S. taxpayer, and they are down in Central and South America with way stations, providing transportation, and encouraging even more illegal immigration. You've got lawyers being paid to help people with, avert the legal process of going through regular immigration law. Basically, you've got lawyers being paid to help people break the law. Shouldn't that be like grounds for disbarment or something? I don't know. You tell me. It's just crazy. So, the original question was, can you have illegal immigration and still maintain the republic? Over time, that answer is no. Simply, absolutely, completely no. The math just doesn't work. Carson, did you not get a membership? For those of you not familiar with Carson, Carson is a longtime viewer of the show. Kind of, pops on and off when he has opportunity. He's got kids and, job conflicts, whatever. But Ellen's been trying to gift him a membership when he's on. Never gets one. They always we can't control who they go to. We just say gift 5. I think we get 10 a month, something like that. So Ellen handles that, but we can't control specifically who they go to. But the idea, I hope, is that when Carson's on, he'll get one. It's kind of like a game now. But Carson never gets one. Carson, YouTube just hates you, man. I don't know why. We love you, but YouTube just hates you.
Hey, if Carson didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any. Yeah. Bless him. I'm the same way, but good God, we've got to figure this out somehow. I'm going to roll downstairs because we're getting towards the end of it, and I got to move my legs a little bit so that I can have blood circulating throughout my body.
I think the dogs will be glad to see you.
I have no doubt.
See you in a minute. And then we've also got, a couple of people who interestingly live up in Canada. Sky Ricky is around Montreal, and Carson is in Alberta, which I understand is a beautiful region. Has some great pictures in the summer. Don't think I could do winter, but Summer looks absolutely beautiful in certain regions.
He's near Edmonton. I don't know if that's near Alberta or not.
Alberta is the province.
Oh, Edmonton ish, Alberta. No, dogs, no. All right. I'm gonna let them out real quick. I'll be right back.
All right. Sky Ricky, define warmest winter ever. Is that fewest number of days at sub-zero? Of course, you're on centigrade, so sub-zero would be more common to y'all, but 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And we talked about Carson working. Right now, he's on night shift, allows him to catch more of the stream. Occasionally, he has to hop off and go take care of business. So we're glad to see you whenever we can. Yeah. Randos that have never watched the channel are wondering why they suddenly have a membership. Really? Because that's who it ends up going to. And ask me, that doesn't make any sense. Why won't YouTube let us gift specific people with memberships that we want to gift? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But, you know, be it far from me to ever complain about YouTube or StreamYard. And Carson, the cold isn't as bad in the dark. I mean, if you're inside and it's, 68 degrees, that's probably, not too bad.
Don't end it before I get back because we have to announce some actual membership perks.
Okay. So Ellen's telling me I have to keep y'all online until she gets back, and then she gives me no idea when she'll be coming back. So y'all, it could be a long night. She'll probably go outside and fall asleep. She has the gift, and I admitted I am jealous. She can go to sleep in a heartbeat. She can just, anytime she gets horizontal, basically, she's going to sleep. Me, I struggle to sleep, so I am jealous. We're having a team effort going on now, trying to figure out why Carson never receives any gifts. It really is a family affair. So, I'm getting instructions now from the boss.
But ask Carson if Canada's feeling a little more socialist these days.
Carson, Ellen wanted me to ask you if Canada is feeling a little bit more socialist these days. And Sky, you too. Yeah, Brentwood, I feel you. I take forever to fall asleep. I have to take Ambien to go to sleep, actually. If I don't, I'll just lay there in bed. I'll be tired, but I'll just lay there in bed usually. Or have intermittent sleep. Like I'll go to sleep for 15, 20 minutes, wake up and do that kind of cycle. It's kind of irritating. Don't really have good solid sleep. Sky, do these subscribers get a notice? I think they do. But I'm not sure what form, whether it's just, a notice in the ticker or not. Don't know if they get an email. Brentwood comes up and says, yeah, they should get an email about it. And then Carson, getting tired of how this country is right now. I follow some Canadians, and you're not alone. Same with this country. There's just tons and tons of people that are becoming increasingly discouraged with the direction of the country. And I'm like, if you look at it over the past 40 years, government has grown exponentially. Are we better off? Do people feel like they have more freedom? Do they feel like they have more control over their life? Do they feel like they have more opportunity in their life? Do they feel like they have a safer life, a happier life? And I think for the vast majority of people, even if they support larger government, most everybody would answer no to those questions. I just, things have not gotten better the past, 30, 40 years. If anything, we're more angry. Our standard of living, it's hard to quantify and measure standard of living because things change. That's a dumb way of putting it, but we have many more luxuries now. The food we buy is vastly different.
Speaking of food,
So can I really compare the lifestyle today for the average person versus the lifestyle 50 years ago? Well, like 50 years ago, we didn't have to worry about Air Jordans. We didn't have to worry about whiny dogs all over the place.
wait, speaking of food, real quick. So we're going to start, we've been making our own bread, our own butter, sour cream, rosemary tincture. That it will be a membership thing that we want you guys to come take part in, have fun with. So if you're not a member on YouTube and you want to learn how to do these things, that will be coming up. Can we give a date?
It's a good idea, but I don't have one yet. I'll have to look at my calendar. We have to figure some things out with it in the book club. So we'll talk about it and try to get a date pegged pretty soon.
Have we decided book club?
Yeah.
What date's that?
Oh, geez.
You've got to write this stuff down, Boo.
I did write it down. I just don't have it right in front of me. Helen's like, I should memorize everything.
What you usually do. Fin. I say read day. Is that it?
No,
that?
I might have put it on my personal calendar. Yeah.
All right. If you want to remember us when that is, let us know because we don't have a clue. We do, but we don't.
Yeah, no, I don't have my
April
personal
16th.
Okay. I don't have my personal calendar with me, and I've only accessed my business calculator.
So Carson, we got to figure out how to get you. I mean, come on, man. I know you do like the thing with the boiling in the bag thing. So yeah, we got to make that happen because we need a class on gift membership receiving. It's not the easiest thing, and it depends on what channel you're on. Sometimes you can just do it no matter what device you're on. In the thing, what is it? Just on your device. But yeah, thank you.
And how do you know when you have one of the best mods in the business?
She knows because she knows everything.
She is just that stubborn. She will get it figured out.
Down there. Right.
What's worse than Ambien or food for sleep? I don't know. Ambien works for me. It gets me to sleep in about 20, 30 minutes. And I don't have any, hangover in the morning or whatever. It doesn't keep me asleep, but it gets me asleep. And for a few hours, I'm relatively deep. And so I end up sleeping 5 or 6 hours, which is generally pretty good.
Yeah, I don't have that problem. I guess you already talked about that. Yeah, sous vide. Sky can tell you how to pronounce it. I'm not. Oh, I have pictures, Sky, that I can send you. It's a thing. It cleans apparently toys as well, and very well.
Oh, back to the recipe and cooking. When we were setting up some of the membership things, we were thinking, and we didn't do this right off the bat because we were still trying to grow the channel, but book club, and we wanted to have like a recipe or cooking night. One night every month or maybe every other month, because it's quite a production to put together.
The way the world's headed right now, you need to be able to make your own food.
And so we thought some, good, clean, healthy recipes, how to bake your own bread or different types of bread, whatever might be of interest to people.
I know we said this, I think, before, but because we noticed that like after 2 or 3 weeks, the bread we bought from the store hadn't molded or changed at all, just sitting out. We were like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. And if mold doesn't want to eat my bread, I don't think I want to be eating it. So
can you look up sous vide?
I have, certain basic standards.
It has the
cooking technique that involves vacuum sealing food in a bag and cooking it precisely regulated water bath. So it's a fancy name for TV dinners?
No. You pre-prepare meals, you vacuum seal them, and then you put them in this thing that cooks the water, right? Hey, Carson, I took French for 4 years. Come on now. I even placed out in college.
They have a machine, a sous vide machine.
Yeah, that's what Carson has. Yep. But like, see, you just vacuum. Y'all can't see what I'm looking at right there, Clay. You vacuum seal. Je ne sais pas. My steaks are not TV dinners.
Listen, for me, if you need a machine to cook a bag in water, it's called a pot and boiling water. What is okay, I'm trying to call up one of these machines. Here's one.
You got to show it though.
I know, I'm working on it. There are 50 different little videos popping
They're gonna
up.
keep popping up.
Ellen's like, you just need to have all this up instantly. She always forgets that you have to press 50 buttons to get the video to share.
You mean 3?
It's like 50.
Okay. See?
So that is basically a water heater. So instead of putting it on the stove, you put this fancy little machine in there.
Hey, Carson Pratt, why don't you come to the sort of free United States of America, somewhat, and bring your little sous vide thing down here and cook it yourself? Because they might arrest you for that in Canada.
Wait a minute.
What?
I want to see what a $250 water heater looks like.
That's called Williams Sonoma.
There you go. $250. Why use a stove when you can pay $250 for a water heater?
Carson, you might have to, instead of give us hugs, come down here and kick his ass. I'm just saying.
All I know is many have tried, few have succeeded. I have had my ass kicked before, but
yeah, I just save his life every now and then. That's about it. I could have let you die several times.
Get your ass up here so I can make you a sous vide dinner.
Like I said, bring your ass down. What's the
And give
email
you guys some
address?
hugs.
I have some things to send. moffatonmoney@gmail.com. You getting a little sleepy? It's been a long day.
Yeah. Let's see a few other things. I had one quote from Milton Friedman. If you pay people not to work and then tax them when they do, don't be surprised if you get unemployment. So I'm curious, your thoughts. Does paying people not to work and taxing them if they do, does that sound like it fits into the concept of a free economy, a free market?
Well, it sounds like it's free for some people.
Voluntary trade by two people. Words have meanings. Let's stick to the firm meaning.
Sorry.
No, I'm just, I have trouble communicating. I'm in academia. I have trouble communicating with people because words are getting to where they mean so many different terms. It's almost whimsical. And if words don't have meanings, then communication is impossible. So that's why I try to usually define words that are not necessarily in common use or that are overly in common use and abused, like fascism,
Free.
like free. But if you're paying people not to work, now don't get me wrong. I know some people have hard times running to bad events, and I was talking with somebody the other day about what they called compassionate capitalism.
Is that a thing?
People kind of, find this different niche and try to, make it something big or whatever. And I basically told him capitalism by its very nature is compassionate, true capitalism, because capitalists view other people with a high view. And capitalistic countries historically have by far been the most charitable.
Can I
Yeah.
interrupt real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was listening to the same Dave Rubin with the progressive left people, and he said, how much do you donate to charitable causes? And she said, well, every time they said, do you want to round up at the grocery store? He was like, so like 15, 20 bucks this year is what you done.
Yeah.
Republicans or conservatives are far more likely to donate way more money or to help someone individually than anyone on the left.
Yeah, studies show that conservatives give more to charitable organizations than liberals. Liberals talk more about charity and compassion, but
they want everybody else to pay for
they
it.
They want others to pay for it. And that is a big difference. But to me, so people talk about paying your fair share. And I've mentioned before how the average family in this country, working family in this country, works the months of January, February, March, and most of April just to pay their taxes. So that's 33, at least for the average family, $70,000 a year. That's 35% of everything you make going to taxes.
Now, you're not just talking about income taxes. You're talking about sales
all
tax,
taxes,
property tax, vehicle tax, whatever, all the taxes. And where does that money end up going? Recently, we found that it's end up going to bringing immigrants in, to taking care of immigrants, to giving them $9,000 a month, to paying for their housing, to pay. What?
Yeah. Or to advance a specific political ideology. Our State Department has been very active at trying to force DEI on other countries, trying to force even socialist solutions economically on other countries.
Oh, you gotta play that video.
Let's see. Which one is it?
That one.
This one?
Mm-hmm. And then you gotta do the thing. You know how that works.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
This is back to the 50 buttons. Y'all hold on.
Okay, it's 4 this time.
No.
You gotta stop. Yeah. Forgot that's not touchscreen.
I personally believe the reason we couldn't get along with the people in Afghanistan is these State Department types were what most people around the world would be considered left-wing extremists. Next question: how can Congress prohibit? Well, first of all, I guess you gave me some. Can you give me any other examples of how the administration weaponizes foreign aid programs?
Well, I can give you an example of one project that is stunning. It's a $45 million 5-year program to support global NGOs around the world. And I remember reading about this project and looking at the request
Can y'all hear
for
that?
applications, looking at a footnote and mentioning that the inspiration for the theory working behind it was an Italian Marxist. And I looked at some of her work, and one of her panels that she led was titled "Marxism in Social Movements, Is Marx Back in Social Theory?" We are literally financing a global network of anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-Western NGOs.
So there you go.
Now, again, NGOs, those are the non-government organizations that are paid for by tax dollars. And many of these are encouraging international to break American law. They're encouraging foreign governments to follow policies that are antithetical to American values, freedoms, liberties, whatever.
And you're paying for it.
And you're paying for it. So the government, interestingly, fascinatingly, regularly takes what I would consider to be an anti-American viewpoint and uses your money to pay for it and encourage it, subsidize it, whatever. So when people talk about taxes, you need to pay your fair share. When my daughter was little, she would say something's not fair, generally a little whiny voice. She didn't really do it too often.
That's not fair.
Because pretty much because she learned that when somebody says something's not fair, they can't define the word fair. It just simply means they're not getting what they want.
Let me tell you what one of my clients used to tell me a long time ago. He said, Ellen, he was just talking about some of his employees, and he just said, you know what? He said, fair comes around once a year, and they have carnivals and I think some animals.
Yeah. So, fair is a funny word. It's one of those words that people throw in when they can't think of a way to describe what they want, need, and they don't want to say, that's just what I want. So you ought to give it to me. We have seen what I would consider to be a relatively serious and impactful decline in the moral climate of this country and others. The major factor in that has been an undermining of the philosophy which has for so long held sway in this country, and that is a belief in an individual's responsibility for their action, belief in an individual's responsibility, and even society's responsibility. The view on society's responsibility has changed. We have become more of a victim mentality, where if somebody does something wrong, evil, immoral, it's really no longer wrong, evil, or moral. It was society's fault to begin with. It's not the individual's fault. So we are adopting the view increasingly that a man is not responsible for his actions, that somehow society is at fault. Society has screwed up. Society's responsible. So why should the individual have to pay for their crimes, for their evil, for their hurt? And I think that is a huge problem. We have gotten into the business of blaming people for things they didn't do and not holding people responsible for the
Accountable.
things that they actually do.
Okay. Carson's going to derail for a second. He sent you an email. And Carson, I don't have my iPad with me right now. It's upstairs, and I think it's dead. But I will check the Telegram when it's charged. Links and picture. All right. That's a lovely picture of me.
All right. Carson is showing off his sous vide. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Slider to the right.
Slider to the right, slider to the left. Here it is. I'm going to shrink it down actually so it'll all fit on one page.
Oh, there's a coupon.
Wait.
20% off.
Inkbird.
Circulator 14 preset recipe. Okay. Fast heating with timer. It's got a Wi-Fi remote control.
All right, man. You got to tell me. You got to give me an idea here. Why is this better than just boiling water on the stove? Now, I kind of understand why it's better than not heating stuff up in a microwave. A microwave can actually change the character, the content, the structure, whatever of foods. But boiling water, why is this better than using a stove? I'm curious.
They go back to he's got links, other links and pictures.
The vacuum sealer.
Yes. Those are great because you can take fresh food, seal it up. It's not a TV dinner. Oh, Brentwood, thank you.
That is sweet of you, Brentwood. Thank you very much.
I can't see it from here, but let me know if Carson got one, unless you can go to the channel. And then go to, well, that's not the channel. Here, channel. Here. Oh,
Hold on.
you're not going to show it there. You have to go to the chat. Thank you.
Ellen is taking me on a wild goose chase.
Yep, just click on the video and look at the chat. Carson, did you get one? Dag nabbit. He did not. Damn it, Carson.
How do you know he didn't?
Because it says who it was gifted to.
Oh, right there.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying with him, y'all. It's listen, Brentwood, I have tried like 15 times to get Carson. Have I not?
She has.
I have done. When did we get the gifted memberships? What, in November? November, December, January, February, March. I've tried 100 gifted memberships to get Carson on, and I can't do it.
Yeah, like I said a little earlier, this really has become kind of a family affair, a game to try to get Carson a gifted membership. So
I don't know how to do it. I don't know. 100 memberships. I don't know how. I don't know, Carson.
We will keep trying.
Maybe you have to put, I guess you can't do that though.
You know, maybe we just need to contact YouTube, because YouTube does just absolutely hate Carson.
Hang on. Okay, Sky Ricky, have you been gifted one ever? Because she's in Canada. I'm trying to figure out if this is a Canada thing or if it's a Carson thing or... Okay, there you go. I mean, I've gotten a gift 3 times and I'm like, I don't want one. I'm good. Then you turn it on. All right, that link should work.
It works by allowing me to receive gifts.
And anyone.
All right, let's
Moffat
see.
on Money allow gifts.
This, if you click on...
Thank you, Brentwood. Best mod ever.
Let me copy this. All right, if you click on this link, which Brentwood sent us.
And Brentwood, you can post links. I think you know that already.
This page pops up, allow gifts. So make sure your button is toggled on.
Which one's on?
I think the blue,
How you know?
because black usually means death. So I'm going blue for life.
Okay, Scott has never been gifted. Is there anyone that has a membership that's been gifted that's in Canada?
Okay, I don't know. Carson did answer my question here.
Okay.
It's about precision temperature. If you want a roast cooked at an internal 135, then you can precisely control the temperature in that water circulating, and the roast won't get over.
So you can just kind of
Okay.
like set it, walk away from it, and it does its thing.
Well, temperature is also a matter of time. So
The
I
chemist
don't know.
and the microbiologist and the finance person, the numbers guy have showed up.
I have to look into it. I just think it's kind of funny.
Okay, so am I right, Carson? Yes, Brentwood has been a mod. Doesn't have to babysit it.
I know several who
See?
swear by this cooking method.
We'll never go over that. See, that's perfect. See, I've got it all figured out because I don't overthink everything.
Well, why not just put the pot on the water and put a thermometer in it? I got a $5 thermometer to tell me when it reaches 135.
I'm not sure if you've realized this or not, but your electric stove has 2 settings: cool and flaming hot.
You know, y'all have to understand my idea of cooking food historically has been
You don't
eating
cook
soup
out of a can
out of a can.
without
And if
heating
I
it
want to
up.
get really fancy, I'll pour it in a bowl and heat it up. So, but I have learned to, you know,
Appreciate good cooking.
I have learned to make good bread.
Really.
Yeah, really.
But the cooking you don't appreciate.
Oh, I wasn't talking about the cooking. I was talking about making bread. Have I learned to make bread or not?
You've learned to make damn good bread.
Okay.
And we want to share that with you because once you have that starter, that yeast starter, which costs like nothing to make, you can make bread for decades.
Oh. Thermometer doesn't control the stove temperature.
Thank you, Carson. 1000% agree.
Yeah. So,
All
right. Like I say, I will look into the sous vide.
I used to, or I did on Clay's when I first came here and had to like cook. I would like get it heated up and then I would turn it back down to low. And there is no such thing as low once you get it super hot. Like it's just like, nope, not doing that.
She's used to gas. It's taken her a while to develop an appreciation for electricity. Because I don't have any problems keeping things low.
Because you don't cook them. There is a difference. Just saying. All right. So what you do is you vacuum seal your food. You can put vegetables in there, I'm assuming. Carson, you can put your meats in there. You seal it all up. You toss it in the sous vide and you're good. Her but not tried yet is putting your cubed potatoes. Sweet. I like that. I just made mashed potatoes.
Yep. She made damn good mashed potatoes.
And you haven't boiled stuff out of the potato. True. You got to keep all the fresh, the stuff in there that you want to.
Well, what you boil out
nutrients.
is a lot of the starch, which increases sugar content. Anyway.
That's what he's saying. You put it in a freeze-dried bag and you're not boiling it out.
I know, but being diabetic might be better if didn't have all the starch or got some of the starch out.
It'd be better if you weren't diabetic.
Be better if I wasn't diabetic. I really hate that.
Gas stoves are better. Gas stoves are better. Thank you.
Well, just because y'all don't care or have any concern for the environment. Gas stoves are better. Too bad our president is making them illegal here in the States.
Yes, he is. Gas everything. Just go, yeah.
I am pretty much a carnivore. If I don't have meat during a meal, I'm like, I haven't eaten yet.
Whoa. Do you want to talk about your lunch today? Not so much.
Yeah. Hot dogs are meat.
Hot dogs.
Yeah.
Hot dog with a bun
Yeah.
and a bunch of French fries and then a bunch of ketchup.
Want a bunch of fries.
The fry
Smell like that
container was
much.
bigger than the hot dog container.
No, it wasn't.
With tons of ketchup, all sugar.
Uh.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, first time I've had that in 3 months. So
French fries.
yeah.
I just got 2
I don't-
Wendy's bags out of your car yesterday.
Yeah, I get a singles sandwich. So anyway, y'all, it's about that time.
And yes, I will call him out, and yes, he'll get mad at me later, but it's all good.
She'll get mad at me later.
No.
So
Junk.
yeah, Carson, it's about that time. Brother, appreciate you joining us, and we will check out the sous vide.
Chunk wants a little bit of airtime. Say hey.
He doesn't want airtime. He wants round, sphere-oriented object
Spherical. Yeah.
time. He just something about when it gets dark, he knows it's time to throw the round spherical object. And he's like, he's insane. He is literally insane. So
Well, good night, Carson. Good night, Brentwood. Thank you so much.
Good night, all y'all.
And thank Sky Ricky. Good night to you and whoever else was on here that I missed. And Melissa, you're gonna be watching tomorrow, so good night to you as well. She had a birthday party, a pug party tonight.
and to those on the replay crew, again, we thank you. Things and hit
Like,
the subscribe, like.
Turn on notifications.
We
Helps.
appreciate y'all. Hope y'all have a great night. Our time is up. We thank you for yours. Good night, all.
Night night.